The final stops on the road to Latrobe have finally happened. It is now time to shift the focus to actual football instead of football-like activity. Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. On June 13th, 2024, this is, of course, the Southside Beat, as we are 3 p.m. Eastern on DK Pittsburgh Sports. He is Chris Halicke. I am Corey Crisan. I am back after a few days, not really off, but elsewhere, I guess. I was very much not off. I was on the South Side doing minicamp, which the last couple of days ran. Practice would have ended by now. And, 24 hours ago, I would be in a scrum with Mike Tomlin or one of the assistants. But today was a little different. Things ended early. I'm assuming players are on flights to wherever destination they're getting to. I know certainly some reporters that Chris and I both know are doing just that right now. They're getting out.
They're unplugging. I think there are two different reporters on the beat who are getting married, actually. So
that would be correct. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like this is the time of year. Today is the last day, because after today, it's the entire league unplugs for a little while, and this is the perfect time for me to make the move. And trust me, I'm doing everything. I went into that yesterday. I'm doing everything I can to get up there, but this is the perfect time for something like this to happen, because the NFL it's the one time per year. It's like these 5-6 weeks is the one time the NFL is just quiet. Might get some news here and there, but it's very, very scarce.
It'd be like typically. The doors will be locked to the facility. Like nobody's going.
Yeah.
Nobody's going into work these next.
Watch this be the one time. Watch the Steelers pull off one of these blockbuster trades, like in the middle of this.
You never know. You never know at this juncture. And of course, you never know with contracts either. And two of the big storylines from this last week of mandatory minicamp, these last 3 days, were Cam Heyward and Najee Harris. Now, let's get Heyward out of the way, I guess, real quickly, because to me, Harris is a bit of a bigger deal.
Yes.
Cam Heyward, of course, seeking a contract extension, seeking, as he says, top 5 positional value. That's what he feels he is. And Cam Heyward did not show up for the first day of OTAs, but then came back, obviously, or first week, I guess, of OTAs, and
first
obviously came back.
Yeah.
It showed up in the third week of OTAs. It even said, like, hey, like, it's obviously a situation he wants to work in his favor, but he wanted to come back and kind of be a leader. Now, Heyward was present for all 3 days of mandatory minicamp. He didn't take snaps on Wednesday, and I didn't see him on the field today. So he was there, but not like in drills or anything like that. So he was there, but just not participating. So, I mean, at least he's there. And to be honest, he's 35. He doesn't need to do much during mandatory minicamp. What matters is him being on the field week 1 of the 2024 season.
I would even be surprised I should say, I would not be surprised if the first couple of practices during training camp, if Cam's participation is pretty minimal. It typically does not, especially for the aging veterans. The workload in the offseason or the ramp up to the season is typically a lot lighter. And I think that Mike Tomlin's been doing that more and more often.
So Cam was on campus these last 3 days. Didn't do much, but he was there. And there's value in that, given his situation. To me, the bigger deal in some instances is Najee Harris. Now, Najee Harris did not have his 5th-year option picked up. He is an unrestricted free agent following the 2024 season. 3-time 1,000-yard rusher, former team captain, very respected by his peers and by Mike Tomlin. And I think that's something we're all aware of. But Harris this week, he had an excused absence on Tuesday. That's from Mike Tomlin. Wednesday, he did not take snaps. And today, he was in shorts and a beanie and likewise did not take snaps. So naturally, the reporter in all of us says, wonder what Mr. Harris is thinking. Declined interviews today. Was not available to speak today. Well, I mean, he was available to speak, but he did not speak today. And he did not speak all week. He did not speak at OTAs. He was at OTAs. He participated in OTAs, but he did not speak during OTAs. So do the math. Since the Steelers declined his 5th-year option, Najee Harris has not spoken. You good? Mosquito?
I have
fly?
one fly in here that just will not go away.
So since Najee Harris's fifth-year option was declined by the Steelers, Harris has not spoken to reporters about anything, and not including that situation. So given the nature of the last 3 days, excused absence is excused absence. Mike Tomlin said it was a prior appointment on Tuesday. But Wednesday and Thursday, to me, it's something and nothing at the same time, because the nothing aspect of it would be, well, I think in this case, Mike Tomlin might be looking at Najee Harris and saying, what matters is you being on the field in Latrobe for however long it needs to be, and then being on the field week one. Unlock Cam in a way. But Najee not wanting to talk about it, Chris, you've been around Najee Harris. You know how he can be around reporters. Yeah. And it's not surprising that he didn't choose to hold a press conference, but at the same time, it would have been nice to hear his thoughts on the Steelers not picking up that fifth-year option. He did say he'll speak at training camp, and I guess we'll all find out during training camp.
I mean, I will say this: it doesn't take being on the seriously. This one fly will not leave me alone.
This is really bothering you.
It's like it keeps flying right in front of my face. So it's it doesn't take long to be on the Steelers beat to see that Najee, despite him actually saying some very, very, he's not a, I'll put it this way. He's not a boring interview.
No,
he has definitely said things that have been either really good for stories or really transparent.
Or true most of the time.
Yeah, I still don't think he actually likes speaking to the media. I don't think that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just based off of what I've seen, I don't think he likes speaking to the media. So I think if he has the opportunity to, have plausible deniability of being able to be like, yeah, I'm not going to speak, and he's able to get away with it, then, by all means, that's what he's going to do. Really quick, this fly is on my computer, and I want to smash the absolute daylights out of it right now.
Do it. You're on video. It makes good TV.
No, but
whatever makes good TV.
What I'm saying though is, first off, I think it's actually smart for Najee to not speak right now, because then he has to answer the question: are you holding in right now? Like, you made it to mandatory camp, like mandatory minicamp, but you didn't actually participate in anything. You had one excused absence. Okay, it's an excused absence. That's something where you've worked out something with the team where you don't have to be there. Okay, it's not the end of the world. And really, minicamp, this is not where things are it's not a make it or break it. Like, oh man, Najee's going to have a down year now because he missed one day of minicamp.
Yeah, or whatever in the middle of June. It's not that big of a deal.
So, but it's probably smart for him to not talk right now, because then if he were to have spoken today and he said, yeah, I was a little peeved that I didn't get the fifth-year option picked up. Don't know what my future is here. And then that's going to be what's hanging over this team for 6 weeks until they all speak in Latrobe. Now, he may show up on July 24th at St. Vincent College with a contract already done, or he might show up on July 24th with contract negotiations ongoing at that moment. Mm-hmm. And then he can give a little bit more substance to that answer to those questions. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I understand people wanting to make a big deal out of it. I do think it's interesting that Omar Khan went on 93.7 The Fan today and answered a question about Najee.
Yes.
Said it was a business decision to not pick up the fifth-year option, but then followed that up with exactly what I reported. A team source was very direct with me an hour after the team declined the fifth-year option and said there is real potential for a long-term deal here, and that they're going to try to knock it out, during the summer. And so Omar Khan didn't say anything about wanting to knock it out during the summer, but he said he wants to keep Najee long-term. So the team wants it to happen. The team wants to keep it along, but I also understand, I don't necessarily agree with it. I think picking up the fifth-year option is an easy decision, because you can always sign him to an extension that goes beyond that. But I also understand the kind of wait and see to see if things work out in this particular offense before you just automatically just go ahead and give him that money.
Well, a couple of things with respect to Omar Khan on the fan today, and I heard that on my way home from the South Side.
Yeah.
As we have mentioned, like during the combine, around draft season, it's okay to pay attention to what they say, but it's more important to look at what they do. Saying versus doing with this franchise and this front office can sometimes, and maybe even oftentimes, be two completely different things. Omar Khan said they have faith in Kenny Pickett. He said that in Indianapolis. I was 2 feet away from him when he said that. And then a month later, Kenny Pickett was gone.
It's right here in front of my face, man. It won't leave me alone. We're going to have to like rename this episode like the like special guest is the fly.
I can't believe we're letting this fly take things over.
Oh, man. It's hilarious. It just keeps flying in front of my face. Anyway.
And I tend to believe that the Steelers want Najee Harris around long term. There's two things that if I was Harris or in Harris's camp that I would be concerned about. Number one is because they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, is what Omar Khan is saying valid in that literal sense, where yes, they might want Najee Harris there long term, but wouldn't you want to pick up that 1 year to ensure that he's there longer term and to buy a little more time, unless they were extremely confident that Najee was going to sign an extension this summer over these next 6 weeks now? Because Omar Khan also said on the fan, they want to stick to that policy where business with contracts is really not discussed in season. He said that today. He reaffirmed that. So if Najee Harris is looking at this and saying, well, they didn't pick up this 5th-year option, they could have guaranteed that I was here at least another year and then worked out an extension. Is Harris thinking, okay, do they want me here? I mean, if it were me and I had somebody say, we want you here long term, but we're not going to pick this up to guarantee it. They could say that, but there has to be something in place. There has to be a plan that has been discussed. There has to be conversations that have happened with Najee and his representation about here's where we think we can get Najee if we decline the 5th year and we give him this money for that 5th year anyway. So maybe it's more, maybe there's a plan in place, and maybe it's going to be more than that, whatever it is, 6.7 million tag that it is. But at the same time, if you're the Steelers and you value Najee Harris greater than that, it's smart business to save money and pick up that 5th-year option, is it not? So it's you get it?
I don't know. Maybe.
So it's multi-dimensional in this sense with Najee's contract situation. Now, Mike Tomlin affirmed Wednesday that Najee being out Tuesday and not really participating Wednesday didn't have anything to do with injury. So yeah. That's per Mike Tomlin. So we can I would say rule out the idea that Harris is injured. But are the Steelers planning to try to save money by not picking this extension up? Or do they literally look, Omar Khan says it, that they want him here long term. But words and actions are different.
Yeah.
Are they gonna back that up and pay him long term and get him for the price tag that they want him at? And that Harris, who has rushed for 3 1,000-yard seasons in 3 years and has been a very good running back by and large and fits what they want to do going forward, like it would be conventional to pick that option up. So I see it both ways. And to be honest, I would see where the Harris camp might be a little peeved by it.
Yeah, so here there's a part of this that I think has forced the Steelers to choose flexibility over what we all thought was a slam dunk pick, and Damon brings it up here. He said, I just hope we don't lose Warren trying to keep Najee. Jaylen Warren is the wild card here that I think has changed everything. I think if Jaylen Warren doesn't emerge as a legitimate NFL running back, a guy who last season racked up over 1,000 yards from scrimmage while not being the premier back, right? Well, while still being technically number 2 to Najee, you can call him 1B. I would probably think it's more appropriate to call him 1B, but still at the end of the day, if you have to call one of them the starter, Najee's the starter. But Jaylen Warren's emergence has definitely, I think it really has the Steelers thinking of, listen, we don't necessarily have to absolutely stick to our guns with Najee, because they can. If it doesn't work out with Najee, they can. It's kind of that same thing that happened with Mike Wallace and Antonio Brown, right? You know, back in the day, we all thought that Mike Wallace was going to get that contract, right? Like that's what we all thought, and he didn't get that, and so they turned right back around and gave that contract, gave that money to Antonio Brown, and by all means, that was absolutely the better decision, because as dangerous as Mike Wallace was as like a deep threat and everything, he wasn't the receiver that Antonio Brown turned out to be. Antonio Brown was way more dangerous. And so that ended up being a good decision. And so if the Steelers think here that, listen, if Najee isn't the perfect fit in this offense or whatever else it is, like maybe they're like, let's just maintain some flexibility, see what happens, because I don't think they're going to go out of their way to overpay for 2 running backs. It doesn't make sense in today's NFL to do that. It almost doesn't make sense to overpay for 1 running back. So, but maybe if they decide, okay, we'll be willing to give the bigger contract to one of them, but not both. And so maybe Jaylen Warren's emergence has the Steelers, has Omar Khan and the rest of the front office wanting to be like, as much as we like Najee and would like to keep him long term, it probably makes more sense to maintain some flexibility, because we don't want to just automatically rule out the fact that Jaylen Warren can be our future too.
So as it sits right now, Jaylen Warren's AAV is about $857,000, right? Like, he's on a very, very cheap deal from being an undrafted free agent. Let me throw some names at you and just ask if you think Warren's projectability is higher than these players. And I'm going to start with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with the Lions. Also very young, 22 years old. He's getting paid $4.46 million AAV. Like, is Jaylen Warren worth $4.5, $5, $6 million a year to the Steelers, with or without Najee Harris? Like, that's a question they're no doubt thinking about. Now, Harris, God only knows right now what that asking price is for a guy like Harris. But looking at the AAVs here, this is overthecap.com. Najee's AAV is about $3.3 million right now. Looking up the chain a little bit, Jamal Williams with the Saints is like $4 million AAV. Austin Eckler, 4.2 from the Commanders. Looking at David Montgomery, $6 million. I'm just putting a few names out there. James Conner, $7 million average annual. Aaron Jones, $7 million average annual. He just got paid by Minnesota. Derrick Henry got $8 million average annual from the Ravens, and he's older than Harris. So when you look at Najee Harris and you look at how much money he could get on the open market, you would have to think that he's going to get paid pretty well, and certainly over that number that he would have been given with that 5th-year option. That's why, from a Steelers perspective, it made total sense to pick up that 5th-year option. Now, again, there has to be some kind of discussion about giving Harris, let's call it a raise, in 2025 and extending him this offseason, or letting him walk, letting him test open free agency and trying to win a bid war that way while maintaining Jaylen Warren. Or they just let Harris walk. But if Omar Khan said today, they love to have him here, then show us. There's that. Just show us. Show us that you want Najee Harris here to be with Jaylen Warren. I think Harris and Warren are a top 2 running back duo in the NFL as it sits right now.
They're up
I think
there.
they're top 2. I think they're tremendous together. I think they're a top 2 duo as it sits, as we sit here today.
It's thunder and lightning. It's one of the better ones for sure.
I think it's very hard to find a number 2 that is as good as Jaylen Warren and having that combo 1-2. Right? So, like, right now, when I look at the situation that they're in, I think it would have made complete sense to pick up that 5th-year option on Najee Harris. It would have saved money. It would have guaranteed him another year. It would have, in all likelihood, opened the door to keep that Harris-Warren connection going on long term. Now it's all up in the air, and I can only imagine that Harris is not thrilled about it. I can only imagine that. So does he sign? The Steelers could want him back, but does Harris want to be back? That's the million-dollar question. That's why we hounded Najee Harris for 3 days to try to speak to him. Yeah. And why today it was very important to try to get Najee Harris on record talking about this, but he didn't want to talk about it. Someone on DKPittsburghSports.com right after practice wrapped up, I put it in our feed about how Harris didn't want to talk. And somebody, God bless their soul, was like, well, what's there to talk about? There's nothing really to see here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a starting running back, 3-time 1,000-yard rusher. His contract was declined. They could have had him another year, and they declined it. Like, that's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than I think people are making it out to be.
No, and it definitely is. Yeah.
So
because $6.8 million is not, breaking the bank for a guy who has been productive. You can argue efficiency for sure, but you can't argue production. I think there are only 2 running backs in the NFL who have more rushing yards since Najee entered the league. Like, production's not arguable. Again, you can argue efficiency, but I broke it down in my chalk talk this week. Like, there are a lot of things that are out of Najee's control as to why the efficiency probably hasn't been there. And so, I think, listen, I think if I had to lean one way or the other, I think there is a way that they work things out. I don't know what that means in terms of money, in terms of years. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I know that. I don't, but I do know. Okay, I'll put it this way, because I saw somebody bring up, Mason Rudolph, that situation of the team going out in front and saying, hey, we really want Mason Rudolph back, and then it didn't happen. Obviously they went a completely different direction. I didn't have anybody telling me, like, from inside the building, telling me, on background, like, hey, yeah, we really, really want Mason Rudolph, and there's real potential here. But I had somebody literally tell me an hour after the 5th-year option was declined, like, reach out to me and be like, yeah, there's real potential here.
Yeah.
So again, it just depends on what the team wants. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I would have picked up the 5th-year option because it's an easy decision to me. It was a slam dunk decision to me.
Let me ask you this question. Do you consider Najee Harris a top 10 running back in the NFL?
Probably not, but the talent, I'll put it this way. Has he done enough to make me think that he could be a top 10 running back this year? Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I can't say that definitively, because the efficiency hasn't been there in 3 seasons. Now, I think that there's a lot of things that play a role into why he hasn't been very efficient. I think part of that is Najee growing as a runner at the NFL level, but I also think a lot of that was Matt Canada's offense. I think a lot of that was average at best offensive line play. I think there's been a lot of circumstances that have kind of handcuffed Najee a bit, and there are stats to back that up. It's one thing for a quarterback, and I talked about it yesterday on yesterday's show. The thing that inhibited Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, and the rest of the offense was severe lack of details, right? We could talk about severe lack of details in terms of blocking up front. We can talk about how the concepts are coached in the passing game. That affects how Kenny throws the football. That affects how much separation receivers can have whenever, because they don't have, if the concepts are coached correctly and coached with better details, maybe receivers don't have to have elite separation like Deontay Johnson, or maybe Najee Harris can have better success running outside zone if the offensive linemen are taught better ways on how to reach block, taught better ways on how to execute whatever running concepts they're deploying. And William here says it, that was in my chalk talk, 0.99 yards per carry before contact last season. He's getting hit before he even gets a yard past the line of scrimmage on average. That's not good. That's handcuffing Najee. Just think about it, that if he gets a half a yard further on average before he starts getting contact, that's still not an elite number, and he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry.
Right. Okay, let me short answer on this one. Is he a top 15 running back?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
So if he's a top 15 running back, and I'm just looking at average annual value contracts, the average annual value of the 15th highest paid running back in the NFL is $5.489 million to Dejan Robinson.
6.8 million is, to me, that's why, to me, the 5th-year option was a slam dunk decision. I would have done it
Correct.
in a heartbeat.
Correct. The 10th highest paid running back average annual value is at $7 million. That's Aaron Jones and James Conner. So if you're Najee Harris and you're looking at James Conner and Aaron Jones, who respectively are 29 and 30 years old, and you know that you're 4 years younger than them, you're going to want more than $7 million. That's conventional wisdom. And again, like you said, and I agree with, that's why picking up 6.8 for a 5th-year option was a no-brainer in everybody's mind, except apparently the Steelers. So that's why it's so confounding to think about this and to project how this whole situation could go with Najee Harris. Let's see. Okay,
Najee
Lori,
not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Lori says this is why she was so upset when they didn't pick up the option. It just creates unnecessary distraction. This isn't really distraction. This is more or less just commentary on a business, on the business end of things. Asking Najee Harris, hey man, how do you feel about them declining that option? Is a very valid question that a lot of people want answered, myself included as a journalist. But if you're a fan sitting at home, you kind of want to know what Najee thinks about that. You want to know what Omar Khan's rationale is. You want to know if Najee Harris wants to be here or wants an extension. Now, I understand time and place. In the locker room after the final mandatory minicamp, you're not going to get a ton of stuff out of Najee Harris. And you weren't going to get a ton of stuff out of Najee Harris if you went to his house and he sat in his favorite chair and you gave him his favorite food and drink and you asked him that same question. You still weren't going to get a lot out of it. That's who Najee Harris is with respect to speaking to reporters. But with that being said, it is a valuable opinion that is needed, that is very much topical, that is very poignant. And look, if Harris is so peeved about not getting that option picked up, he could spin the words his way. He could say, look, they know I want to be here. You all know I want to be here. I love being here. He could say that, or he could zag and say, look, I'll use it as motivation. I will work my tail off this season. I will do everything I can to make sure that they know my value and use it in that way. There's ways for Najee to not navigate this in a public spectrum. If he doesn't want to talk, that's fine. More power to him. Good for him. Doesn't have to. But it's worth to know. That's why, I'm just kind of going back on some of the commentary, like, well, why do we need to know what Najee thinks about this? Hello, it's a starting running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they said no thank you to a 5th year of him after 3,000-yard seasons. That's why. Yeah,
and I saw Mike in Texas, love you, buddy. He said then produce and earn it. I'm like, he's produced. Again, you can argue efficiency. 3.9 yards per carry for his career is not efficient. Had his best season last year in terms of yards per carry, and it was 4.1. That's not that much better. Production's not an argument there. I mean, like I said, 2 running backs in the NFL have more rushing yards than Najee does since he entered the league. And production's absolutely there. And by the way, he's been there every single game. He's been available. He's been an Iron Man. And again, I really feel like probably even more so than I thought Deontay Johnson got a bad rap. I really think that Najee has had the deck stacked against him quite a bit. This is an offense that, wanted to run more outside zone stuff. And the numbers back up that Najee can run outside zone. That's fine. But you had an offensive coordinator doing it who didn't he just was not a good offensive coordinator. It handcuffed everybody. I've been as critical as anybody else as Kenny about Kenny Pickett. It handcuffed Kenny and his growth, right? I'm not denying that whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I the only thing that makes sense to me is that the only reason why they're wanting to maintain flexibility here instead of locking themselves in, which again, to me, $6.8 million is an easy slam dunk. I'm just saying, I'm trying to make sense of it. The only thing that makes sense to me is that they want to possibly maintain flexibility in case they decide Jaylen Warren is the guy.
Yep.
Because I highly doubt they're going to pay big time contracts. Let's just say it takes something like 4 years, like $40 million with 30 guaranteed to keep Najee, right? That's 10 million, AAV, but it's, 30 million of it's guaranteed. So you're not actually paying, it's not a fully guaranteed contract. A lot of the times when you hear certain contracts in the NFL, you're like, Najee's not worth 10 million per year, but you have to look at the guaranteed money too. So let's just say that's what it takes. But then with Jaylen, you want to keep him too. But what if he gets to restricted free agency, in which the Steelers have certain rights and they can match, and this one team just blows Jaylen away with this one offer because Jaylen has another phenomenal season and the Steelers go, crap, we can't match that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, to me, it almost doesn't even make sense that they're declining the 5th-year option and then they're saying that they want to sign him long-term and want to try to knock that out if they're wanting to maintain flexibility with Jaylen Warren. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Whatever. And you have a lot of people that have this that have this mindset. Williams says Warren is the better running back. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're two different running backs. I don't know if I would say one is better than the other. Jaylen's definitely more efficient. But Jaylen also isn't facing the same things that Najee's facing. I can bring that up for. Sorry, I was going to say, for example, last season, Najee, 52% of the time that he was on the field, the Steelers ran the football. When Jaylen was on the field, 35% of the time they ran the football. Like Najee was facing stacked boxes way more often than Jaylen was. And so it really is apples and oranges. You can't just look at, well, Jaylen's yards per carry was only Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey had better yards per carry last year, while Najee's down to 4.1. Like, yes, you can just look at that number, cherry pick it, and say Jaylen's a better running back, but you have to look at all of the other factors that go into it. Do I think Jaylen's capable of being better than Najee and being a potential top 10 running back? Yes. What he can do in space, what he can do after contact is special stuff, man. But to just automatically say Jaylen's better, I don't know. And I think that's why, like, again, maintaining flexibility is the only thing that makes sense to me.
You want to know something funny? Is Christian McCaffrey just re-signed for $19 million a year? Trivia question: If he was trivia question, if Christian McCaffrey was playing in the NBA, where do you think that salary would rank in terms of average annual value? Where do you think that is in terms of average annual value, like ranking wise? He would be the blank highest paid player in the NBA at that much money average annual.
Let's see, 40th.
He would be the 88th highest player highest paid player in the NBA.
Not surprising.
Hey, listen, get a basketball in your kids' hands. Don't get a football in your kids' hands. Get a basketball in your kids' hands, or don't make him play running back. He would be making slightly more than Tim Hardaway Jr. and slightly less than Marcus Smart. That's where he would be. He would be making less money than Cameron Johnson, former Pitt guy, who was making $23.6 million from the Brooklyn Nets. So, again, maybe put a basketball in your kid's hands and not a football. Teach them that jump shot, not that quarterback throw. Oh man. But yeah, so this is the final stop before training camp, and I want to emphasize one last thing on Najee. I think it's important to say this wasn't a case of here's what the Steelers offered Harris, take it or leave it, and he said no. This was the arbitrary number that the league set for teams to offer their first-round draft picks for that fifth-year option. This wasn't the Steelers saying, we think you're valued at this. It was the NFL saying, hey, Steelers, you can retain Najee for this price tag. Take it or leave it. They chose to leave it. So I just want to make that clear. This wasn't Najee saying no. This was the Steelers saying no to an imposed number. Just want to make that clear. All right.
Yeah.
This is my last show. That closes the curtain. The new chapter opens Monday. For those that don't know, I have taken a new opportunity outside of the journalism field. This is my last couple of days with DK Pittsburgh Sports. DK wrote about site stuff last week, and you can read more about that from his end and from DK Pittsburgh Sports end. But from my end, I'll have more information on what's happening within the next few days here. The new opportunity starts Monday. It's something that, as I mentioned on Monday, it's something I've been looking forward to doing. Just want to be more available. Just want to ensure that, you know, I can be around my parents more. I could be around my family more. I could be around my girlfriend more. And quite honestly, you know, I'm also chasing something and doing something that I've wanted to do. I'm getting into an industry that I also love, you know, equally compared to sports journalism, and it's going to be really fun. So the reception from all of you has been wonderful. Chris, you've been wonderful as well. Those that I got to speak with on the South Side today, I appreciate all of you as well. If you're listening, and I know that you are, it's bittersweet to, you know, leave something that you've done for a decade plus, but it's also exciting to know that there's something new on the horizon. I was never one person to think that I was going to do one thing for my whole life. You know, whether that's journalism or, you know, enjoy, you know, certain hobbies or whatever it is. I was never going to be that one person that just wanted to do one thing for his whole life. So with that being said, that combined with kind of just wanted to be more available and having that ability to provide for my family and be present, it's going to be great. And I'm certainly looking forward to it. I appreciate all of you. I'll still be in Pittsburgh. I'll be here, just not here, if that makes sense. So yeah, that it's going to be exciting. And again, I'll share more on that in the coming days, but thank you to you all. Thank you to you, Chris. Of course, thank you to DK and Dolly for a couple of wonderful years here. A lot of memories, a lot of friendships, a lot of growth over the last couple of years. And I'm very thankful for this. So, and I'm thankful for all of you. So we will see each other down the road, I'm sure. I will always be a friend to this site, this channel, these people, you people, and it's go time. It's time to open up a new chapter in my life. So thank you all for the kind comments. I see them flowing in. I appreciate you all. And Chris, again, you've certainly been wonderful to me, and I appreciate you. And looking forward to the coverage and training camp. I know this is your element. You know, for those that haven't read Chris's stuff on DKPittsburghSports.com, start. Chris puts a lot of passion into this. Chris is all about this, and he has a knack for it, and he's tremendous. And I'm really proud to have been able to work alongside him and for him in some instances, and you know, with him in some instances. So really, really cool to see Chris come back up and get to take over the beat again and be back in his element. So you all are going to be in great hands with Chris and the new person that comes along in my place, who I'm sure you all get to know very soon. But Chris, thank you again. And thank you all for all the kind wishes. And again, I'm gone, but I will certainly be around. I'll put it that way.
Likewise, man. And you know, like I said, there's it's not easy replacing a guy of what, you know, like what Corey does. You know, Corey's, you know, there isn't an assignment I remember him really saying no to. You know, I'm sure it's happened. I think we all eventually at one point say I'm like, no, just because I've got this on one plate, and somehow I grew a third hand and also holding this too. And, you know, it happens, but I don't remember a time in which Corey just flat out said, no, I can't do this. Those guys are not easy to find. and so, and those are really the people that end up having a job for as long as they want it. And so, Corey did, and shoot, this show witnessed it, because how many times Corey wasn't here because he was covering Steelers, or he was going to cover Pirates, or he was flying to Nebraska to cover Duquesne in the NCAA tournament, or he was covering Pitt or something. So I appreciate Corey, appreciate everything he's done. Mike in Texas gives you one final assignment here. He says, "Here's an assignment, Corey. Stay."
I can say no to that one.
Yeah. But no, I really appreciate that. I appreciate everything Corey's done. It's definitely a new chapter of this show for sure. We've done 188 episodes. No, Corey hasn't been here for each and every one of them, but Corey's still been at the heartbeat of the show for 188 episodes. And so, really appreciate it. Really appreciate you, everything you've done. Really excited for you and what you're doing. I know that we'll see each other, and I've already seen some people vying for it, and maybe I'll have to twist your arm and bring you back as a guest a couple of times.
You never know.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way. I'll try to make. I'm not some sort of politician trying to make some sort of promise on a campaign, but I will do everything in my power to get Corey to come back as a guest at least one time. Yeah. So but I appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody. And yes, the show is going on. We'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow before the weekend. And then, obviously once we get our new guy in, we'll get him acclimated, and then that'll go on. But Corey, really appreciate everything, man.
Randy, great question. Am I planning on going to the 10th year anniversary? I would like to. So we'll see. It just depends on new scheduling. But I would like to be present for the 10th year anniversary. So TBD on that. But this industry has treated me incredibly well. I'm very thankful.
The Fly came back, and the Fly is also wanting to say hi to you.
This industry has treated me incredibly well, and I'm very thankful. But right now, it is time to open a new chapter.
Shower or something.
Chris, this Fly, man.
I'm being really self-conscious. Like, do I need to go take a shower or something? Like, it won't leave me alone.
You're trying to sell that house, man. You can't put the front on
it's
that.
One fly. And I can't get it out. Like, you don't have any idea how many times my back door opens, like letting the dog outside. My kids wanting to go play outside. Keeping insects out of the house is impossible.
Yeah. Robert, it's not about money. It's about other things. Believe me. It's about life things, and that's why I'm doing this. So, again, thankful to all of you. Thank you, Chris. And please remember, you can find this show, today's show, previous shows on this channel on DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers on YouTube. You can play back any episode at any time. You can also do that on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever podcasts are found. All you have to do is go to that site, search DK Pittsburgh Sports. You'll find this. You'll find Scout's Eye with Matt Williamson. You'll find podcasts on Fifth Avenue. You'll find Pirates Fan Forum. You'll find all of our shows, including DK's Daily Shots. It also, if you're a Steelers fan and don't listen to Scout's Eye, what are you doing? Matt Williamson's awesome. Nobody sees the game like Matt Williamson.
No.
And it certainly is worth a go if you are very interested in football, as I know a lot of you are. That's why you're here. If you have not done so yet, please subscribe to our channels. DK's Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube. Subscribing, leaving a like, sharing this episode, that all goes a very long way to help the algorithm, so that people who are not subscribed or maybe don't know about this show can find the show, and they can subscribe, and that'll appear on other people's algorithms, and they'll subscribe, and it just keeps going and growing and growing, and Chris can get Southside Beat baseball caps.
Not these trucker caps that I get free from my wife's job.
Yeah, there you go. So please do that. If there's one thing that I can ask of all of you, it's to do that, to continue to support this show and this channel and DKPittsburghSports.com, whether you're a subscriber or not. We appreciate all of you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you all. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. This has been the Southside Beat. Cheers, everybody, and thank you.